girls, and welcome to Season 3 of the Hey Girl podcast with my mom, Bethany Needham. Each week, guests will share their amazing stories of following Jesus on all kinds of journeys. I hope their stories inspire you to run your race in your place. Thank you so much for listening.
Hey listeners, welcome to another week of the Hey Girl podcast. I am pretty stoked that I get to be back recording another intro because truthfully, I've had a couple of weeks off. We got a whole bunch of things done all at once and it gave us a little bit of a breather. And now I'm back sitting in my studio, just feeling refreshed and excited. But this has been an insane season for us, just so much going on. And it's been fun, and definitely a lot of really great memories have been made already, but it's making this whole season just fly by so quickly. So when Andy told me that this Monday we were releasing Elle Campbell's episode, I was pumped because when life gets crazy and I just feel like there are so many things that really ultimately are out of our control, I find myself leaning more into laughter, into finding joy in things. And I am somebody that really enjoys like certain comedians. I don't know about you. Some people listen to podcasts while they drive. Some people listen to worship music or whatever. I do like all of the above, but when I need to just relax, I listen to comedians. Just throwing it out there. Comedians can be hard to find because a lot of them are kind of inappropriate, which, not gonna lie, frustrates me because I feel like you don't have to be inappropriate to be funny. But there are a couple of really good comedians out there that are not inappropriate, that are hilarious. Nate Bargatze is probably one of my favorite right now. And it just keeps me laughing. So the reason I mention it now is because you're gonna find in this episode with Elle, her and I hanging out and chatting is we had a good time. I've known Elle for a while now, kind of from a distance. It started with me following her blog, and then I got to meet her at a conference. We're going to talk through that in the episode, but just know that this is like getting two old friends together in front of mics. There is some silliness and some laughter, and I really hope that this week's episode brings laughter to you as well, and it's not one of those awkward you had to be there moments. And sorry if that's what it is. Oh, but I'm excited for you to meet her. If you have never heard of Elle Campbell before, then you should probably crawl out from under your rock. I'm only half kidding. But if you're in the youth ministry world, you probably have heard of her. If you are not, you should look her up. I just have such a great appreciation for her and her husband, the work that they do in serving the church, specifically in the area of youth ministry. But ultimately, in Hey Girl style, Elle's just going to share her story, share the places that God has brought her, how he's working in her life. And I love every moment that I get to spend with Elle. She's just a really fun friend. And I have a feeling by the end of this episode, you're going to want to hang out with her just so that you can enjoy as much laughter as we enjoyed in this actual episode. Can I just give you a sneak peek as we jump in? Right before we started recording, one of the funniest moments, if you know me at all, mustard cardigans are kind of my signature thing, partially on accident, but partly because I just stinking love mustard cardigans, especially in the fall. So when we turned on our video recording and Elle was wearing her mustard cardigan, it was just this instant bond. And absolutely hilarious that Andy happened to be in the room and threw my mustard cardigan to me. So from Elle's perspective, she saw me on video and a mustard cardigan came flying through the air out of nowhere. So right out of the gate, it was silliness and we were just having a lot of fun. So Elle Campbell, look her up. You can follow her on all the social medias. She is a master of social media. And if you work in student ministry or you have a teenager, you should definitely follow her because you're going to get a lot of good information and wisdom and all sorts of things. So enjoy this week's episode. Prepare to laugh. And if you don't laugh, my apologies that I am more funny in my head than I am in real life. Okay, girls, I am here with, let's just say, probably a friend that I was like friends with her before she returned the friendship. Do you feel like that's probably accurate, Elle?
Here, listen, Bethany Needham. All I want to know is why you think you're not as cool as me, because I feel like you are far superior in coolness. And the problem was you just didn't have a blog soon enough. If you had had a blog, I would have been like worshiping the ground you walked on much sooner. That's the breakdown.
Well, first of all, I don't ever remember saying that you were cooler than me. You kind of took that to the next level.
Listen, I'm reading your facial expressions, and that was what I was getting from it. So
yeah, it's true.
But, I just need you to know that I'm obsessed with you. So.
I think I should really share the story about when we first met. Mm-hmm. And it's a special memory. I don't know that you like to think back to this, but I remember it as actually the Orange Conference in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And I think I was like stalking you and really trying to just get up close. And I think like you went into the bathroom and I got into the stall next to you, and without getting into detail, you were clearly in distress. And I thought, this is my moment. And so I did what any best friend would do. And I just crawled under and I was like, girl, what can I do for you? And
do you remember what I was in so much distress about during this moment?
I do.
Yeah.
But Andy edits out all of the things. So, but I feel like feel like you remember pretty, is that how you remember?
I remember it a little differently. I remember the conference part, and generally that's where the similarities end.
Okay. I'm going to be real. I may have made up everything past Orange Conference.
Yes. You may have, but you were on the right track for a little bit. But yeah, that's where we met. We met at a conference. It was great. And then I feel like our friendship was really solidified at another conference that you and your hubs were, mostly in charge of. So that was where, like, conferences, those have been our jam.
That's true. Our entire relationship is built around conferences.
Yes.
But for all the things I love about you, I don't know that our listeners know all the amazing things about who you are. So I need to know all the things about Elle.
Okay, great. I don't like talking for extended periods of time. So feel free to interrupt me whenever you want.
I'll add some amen word, sister. Okay, I'll just interject them to make it.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's perfect. That sounds really good. So my name is Elle Campbell. It wasn't always Elle Campbell. My name used to be, wait, should I tell you my full name? I have a full name. Most people don't know my full name. My first name is Arielle, Aryelle. It's like a very bougie first name, and no one can ever spell it or say it. So that's why it got shortened to Elle. It's a lot easier,
I don't even know you.
I know. It's like my secret identity. And my last name used to be, before I got married, Gehagen, which is an excellent name that I'm sure everyone loves. And so I had this period of time in my life where after I shortened Arielle to Elle, it was really a struggle because people thought my name was Elka Hagen. And that was hard for me. That was really hard. That's why I knew I needed to get married young so I could get a new last name. I was born and raised in Buffalo, New York. Parents, I have two of them, a mother and a father. I have two brothers as well. They're both younger than me. I am the oldest, and lived in Buffalo my whole life up until the time I was 27, which we will get to. Yeah, so grew up in Buffalo. It's a cool place. Best pizza on planet Earth. Little known fact about Buffalo, but it is true. Growing up, I really was I was kind of like artsy. Like I liked to just like make things and draw things and paint things and read books. And I just that was what I did all the time. But as I started to get older, I was like, what am I going to do for a living? And I had zero idea. Zero clues, because I don't know, when you like to just draw and read books, like how do you get paid for that? I have no idea. So just, went on with my life, did my thing. When I was 16, I met a boy named Kenny. He became my first boyfriend and my first and only husband at the time.
Thank you for clarifying.
We started dating when I was 16. He was 19. We got married when I was 19. So we were very young, jumped right into the marriage thing. And he was a youth pastor, well, an aspiring youth pastor. He was like trying to work his way up to become a youth pastor. I think he was an assistant, maybe a creative director, whatever that means, when we got married, which means we were making no money, basically $0 for the most part.
He was like the assistant to the regional manager.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah. A lot of Dwight Schrute similarities. He loves Battlestar Galactica. He does not love Deep, but we are working on that.
How does he feel about bears?
I think, one of our favorite documentaries is called Grizzly Man, which is about a man who lives with bears until he gets eaten by them. So I think he's on board with bears. I'll ask him later. That's a good question. It's a good, dinner table topic that I'll ask about. Thank you. So we got married. I was 19. He was 22. Yeah, I still kind of at that point, I'm like, hey, I found my husband. Still don't know what my future career is going to be. So we'll see what that is. But shortly after we got married, I was offered a job at our church. And the job was kind of to just do random ministry stuff. So I was maybe helping to plan events. I was coordinating different things, designing things, just whatever. I never really saw myself going into ministry because I didn't really think about this at the time. But looking back, I realized this because I never saw any women doing ministry in capacities that were even remotely interesting to me. I would see women maybe leading women's Bible studies, and I just don't have enough feelings for that. So that was off the table. I saw women leading little kids, in children's ministry. I cannot relate to children in any way. So that was off the table. And then I saw women in the handbell choir and playing the organ, and I can't do either of those things either. So I was like, well, ministry is not really for me. Maybe I'll just do this job for a little bit and then get the heck out until I figure out, what it is I really want to do. But over time, I started learning some skills and kind of teaching myself some things. I was a self-taught graphic designer while working there, because in ministry, you just got to make stuff happen sometimes. And as I really enjoyed writing these different just pieces that we needed to create, whether it was a baptism handbook or a training manual for volunteers or something. And I'm like, man, this is really fun. This seems like it should be boring, but I really like putting words together in ways that would be inspiring and actually make people feel good and communicate what needs to happen. I think my favorite part of the job was just getting to create things, which wasn't a large part of my job. But when I got to do it, I was like, yo, this is awesome. After a few years, there was some staffing changes, and there was a period of time where nobody knew what my job was anymore. I didn't have a boss. I didn't have a job description. I didn't have a title. And they were just we'll find stuff for you to do. I'm like, okay, fine. So I kept coming to work. And in the meantime, at this time, Kenny had taken over the middle school ministry. So he was the middle school pastor. He had graduated from assistant to the regional manager. And I thought, I'll help in middle school ministry. I feel like they've got some things that they could have fine-tuned and tweaked, especially in middle school ministry, you have a lot of volunteers, and the volunteers needed some help. They needed somebody to lead them and invest in them. So I kind of started helping there. And that's really where I think I found my niche finally in ministry. I was like, oh, I can actually see myself doing this for the long term. I oversaw all the volunteers and all the small groups for our middle school ministry. So that means I got to invest in people, and I got to create resources that helped those people. And it was just a blast. We had a lot of autonomy, and we got to think creatively about how do there's big shifts that we want to take place in this ministry. We want to see some transformation happen. How do we get from point A to point B? And it was just a really cool experience to be able to strategize and to care for people and to exercise our creativity. It was really, really fun. So that's really where I fell in love with ministry. 4 years in, I'm like, oh, now I like this job. All right, here we go. Now I know my career. I ended up staying at that church, which, by the way, was the church I grew up in. So 27 years in the same church.
Wow.
It was the best. I loved it. We loved where we were at. We loved our church. We loved working there. We always said, this will probably be the only church we ever work at, because like we're never going to find a healthier church than this. Anything else would be a downgrade. So we're like, this is it. Like, we are happy campers. Here we are. So while we were there, we started our own business. At first it started as just kind of like a little free resource site that we had created, where we were taking the things that we were making for our church and then just making it available for free for other churches to customize and then, like make their own. And it really like blew up super fast. Like, we weren't ready. We were just putting stuff out there. And within a few months, we had people emailing us every single day asking like, hey, can you make more things so that I can have them? And at the time, we were just hosting these things like on our church's website. And I mean, it was a pretty big church, especially for like we were in Buffalo. There's not like a ton of big churches there. So they were pretty like tech savvy. They were forward thinking. But our web guy called us and he was like, yo, your stupid resources are taking up like all of our website bandwidth. Like, you need to move them because I have other things to do on this website. So at that point, we're like, all right, well, we have to take it off. We have to start our own brand. And we're like, man, are we starting a business? Is that what we're doing right now? So we're like, I guess we are. I mean, we both like making things. I'm kind of like the artist creative side of the family. And then he's like the entrepreneurial side of the family. So we're like, yo, let's just try it, I guess. So we created a business called Stuff You Can Use. We just started making like downloadable, customizable resources for churches, super like low cost, like under $20. And again, it blew up really fast. And I started blogging and kind of writing and got to the point where we eventually were like, man, like maybe I should like move down to part-time so I can spend time like still at church, but also do this thing because it's so in demand. And we had no idea what we were doing. We didn't intend to start a business. It was just happening. So we had to like get online and figure out how to do a business. We were like Googling and listening to podcasts and learning about things like email lists and lead magnets and just all of these things we never even knew existed. And in the meantime, another organization, they're called Orange. They reached out to us in 2012 or 13, somewhere in there. They're like, hey, we like what you're doing. Would you like to be part of some of the stuff we're doing? So they actually asked me to co-author a book with two people from the company, which was amazing. So we wrote a book called Creating a Lead Small Culture, which is all about how to transition the culture of your ministry to better embrace small groups and empower small group leaders, which is like what we had done and what we loved so much. So that was really fun. Got to like co-author a book. It was bananas, a blast. And then they kept calling and they were like, but like, do you want to do more things? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I feel pretty good. Like, I'm at my church, I'm doing stuff you can use, doing stuff with you guys. Like, this is cool. But this is how they got me. So it was probably like a year of them being like, just come down here and live in Atlanta. And we were like, no. But then they said, would you like to launch a curriculum for us? And I was like, launch something? I get to make something from scratch? Yes, I will do that. So we moved to Atlanta and I got to help them launch their first ever middle school curriculum, which was a blast. That's the kind of ministry context I've been coming from. As I stated, I liked to make things and I liked words. And so this was just amazing. We were there at Orange for 2.5 years, making stuff and being part of the team, which was amazing. But at the same time, Stuff You Can Use was still growing. So we had at this point, we had a podcast, we had email lists, we were still doing, all those resources. And we had this like Facebook group that was blowing up too. And we just realized like, hey, we can't do both of these things that are both growing and both demanding more and more of our time and attention. So we basically quit our dream jobs twice. First, we quit our church, which was our dream job. And then we quit Orange, which was also a dream job, and decided we're going to do this thing all by ourselves and just make this business like our full-time thing. So in one day, we lost 2 salaries and we're like, oh, let's see if we can make this work. So we've been doing that since 2017. And now it's our full-time thing. We've been launching some new products. We created our own curriculum for youth ministries. And we're about to launch a kids ministry curriculum now, which is crazy. Yeah, we're just like making stuff all day, every day, making friends, making things with our new friends. And so that's like a real quick look at my story. What did I leave out? What?
Like I would know. Well, I would love to know. So right now, first of all, I have to say it's fun to hear you share because from my seat, I think I really, all jokes aside, I first met you kind of over your blog and the stuff you use. And as a youth leader, I was one of those that actually purchased the things off the stuff you can use. Yeah, I did. I paid your rent.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
But the things I really appreciated about it were, one, that you made them customizable. I thought it was just so clever because I feel like every youth pastor, there's a million things we can do, but there's only so many things you have time to do. And so to have somebody be like, listen, I'm going to put my creative energy into making something awesome. And then all you have to do is go and like fill in your details.
Right. Put your name on it. Like copying my homework. But I
love that. And then I loved how you kept everything super affordable because I was not from a really large church. And so our budget, it just allowed us to do things that we wouldn't necessarily have been able to do. So that's my sappy way of saying thanks, Elle.
Well, that's great to hear. And the whole thing about like keeping it affordable and like thinking about smaller churches really had a lot to do with our pastor, because when he came in, I mentioned we're at like a larger church. His name's Jerry Gillis. He's still there. And he came in and he was like, guys, we have responsibility to the greater body of Christ to not be hogs and keep all the things for ourselves. So we are going to support other churches. We are going to work together. We're not going to think that we are better than anybody else. We just happen to have more stuff and more resources and more staff. So when we make things, let's make sure it can get into the hands of other people. So that was just a vision that really inspired us and that we bought into. And we're like, let's be nice to people. That sounds good.
I love it. And I'm just thinking about all the churches that have really benefited from that. So, Elle, right now, you're married. You guys have been out on this, like doing it on your own for over a year now?
Over a year and a half.
Wow. So tell me, for somebody that's doing all of this, like creative, whatever, what does your day-to-day look like? Like, what is life like right now in this season?
Yeah, that's a great question. Somebody just asked me this the other day and I tried to answer, and I wish that was like a first draft, but I still don't know the answer. Basically, what's going on at this point is, so Kenny's kind of functioning as like the CEO of our company. Because I love the content and the words and the design, I'm functioning as like the chief content officer, basically. And so now in the last probably 6 months, well, let me back up. It was always just me and Kenny, stuff you can use. It was just the two of us doing literally everything, making the websites, doing the graphic design, writing the words, proofreading the words, responding to people on Twitter, literally, like we did everything. About 6 months ago, we were able to start hiring some people. And the thing that is like so bonkers right now is our team, like our core team, is now 10 people in the last 6 months. So we went from 2 to 10. And they're not all full-time, but we have maybe 3 full-time staff members and then a bunch of key contractors who are kind of the core team. That's how we spend a lot of our time, is figuring out how to offload the stuff that we've just been doing intuitively for the last 8 years onto our team, and figure out hey, how do we expand what we're doing? How do we empower people to do things that we've been doing? And just how do we figure this out? So there's a lot of things that we're figuring out right now. But a lot of the stuff that I do currently is I do a lot of content stuff. So we work with about anywhere from 40 to 60 contributors every year for our curriculum, which is our core product. So these are youth pastors and educators and writers and people from literally all over the place: United States, Canada, Mexico, Uruguay, the UK. They're everywhere. And so these people are sending us things that they've written, sermon series or events or meetings for volunteers. And then I take it and I edit it and make it sound like it's coming from stuff you can use. I make it look pretty. I'm like putting it into documents. I'm still doing all the layouts because I'm a little bit like maybe anal retentive when it comes to that. So I'm doing those. We are about to launch a kids curriculum, like I just mentioned. So for this past few months, we've been working with our kids director, and she and I have been mapping out like a scope and sequence for a kids curriculum, and like, what are we going to teach kids? When are we going to teach them those things? Who are like the writers going to be? So there's a ton of that, and just like meeting with the people who are going to contribute. So I mentioned we like to make new friends and then make things with our new friends. And that really is like so fun. Just learning from people who are in the trenches, doing amazing ministry. And we like to work with people who maybe don't necessarily have these giant platforms, and they're not famous people. They're just hey, we're all youth workers, but we're doing really good things. So we like to find those people in the trenches who have something to say, and then kind of help them create something that goes to now thousands of churches. So it's really fun for us to just not just make things, but help other people make things. That's really, really fun for us. So yeah, that's a lot of it.
So you do a lot of things for a lot of people and churches and meeting people. Two things come to mind, or two questions rather. Okay. We'll start with the marriage one.
Ooh.
Because it is a unique thing to serve closely in ministry with your spouse. I mean, obviously a lot of people do it, but anyone who's done it before will tell you that it has its pros and its cons, but I would love to know from you, what has it been like for you and Kenny in your marriage? How many years have you been married now?
Almost 12.
Okay, so 12 years of serving together.
Yep.
You don't have any children, right. So it is literally the two of you together. Yes. Tell me a little about this.
I would love to. So here's what you need to know about me and Kenny. We are both very low-key, laid-back people. Kenny doesn't care about much. He cares about pizza. He cares about the bills. He cares about making good things and our business. But
and
me. Oh yeah, that too. But I say that to mean he doesn't really get worked up about stuff. It's hard to make Kenny mad. It's very rare in all of the years I've known him that I've literally even seen him mad. Here's the other thing. This is literally when I'm driving with him, somebody cuts him off, something, a typical person would have a little bit of road rage. He literally says, "Hey, it's cool, baby." To the car. He's "It's cool. No, that's cool. Yeah. You go over there. That's fine. He does not care. He does not care at all. It's hard to work him up. I do get a little more worked up, but in general, I'm like a peacemaker. Are you into the Enneagram?
Yes.
Okay, me too. I'm a 9 to the core. So I don't like conflict, but I do get a little passive aggressive, and sometimes I have outbursts of anger. So there's that. So we're both pretty even-keeled people in general. So that helps a ton. And I think we are not a normal couple, which we are aware of, because we working together is our quality time. We sincerely love just making things together. Even when we were dating, we were making stuff together. There was this, I had to do a senior project where I had to, it was very open. I don't even really remember the parameters of this project, but what we ended up doing, and he helped me with the whole thing, was I illustrated a music video to a song by the Postal Service. Are you a Postal Service fan?
Yes.
Yes. Do you remember the song "Sleeping In"?
I mean, sing it for me.
No, I'm not singing to you in private or on a podcast, but
you're the worst, Elle Campbell. The worst.
But I'll tell you about it. It was great. So it's about, it's kind of about global warming.
Oh.
It's an excellent song. Guys, go listen to it. Actually, the video might still be on YouTube. I'll find it for you. And if I can find it, I'll send it to you. But I illustrated this stupid music video on Microsoft Paint. It was the most ridiculous, ugly. It was stick figures. It was outrageous. And Microsoft Paint is not a user-friendly program, friends. It is anyway. And he animated it for me. So we like worked together on this music video, which was hilarious. That was the first thing we made together. And then when we were dating, we were like, yo, should we start a t-shirt business? Like I was like, hey, I can design them. Kenny was like, yeah, I'll get them printed. We'll figure it out. We never did it, but like we did all the research for it. And then we're just like, that's too much work. Forget it. Yeah. We've just always loved making things together. And I think it helps that like our skills complement each other. We don't really overlap like a ton. We're pretty autonomous. He kind of handles like the structural side of a lot of the things that we do. And then I handle the content, like the words, the look, all that stuff. And we work together on the big picture ideas and strategies. Yeah. I think we kind of just like found our niche pretty quickly. And we're like, oh, this actually works. And this is fun. So it's weird, but that's us.
It's adorable in like a super hyper nerdy sort of way.
Listen, we are nerds through and through. Most people have like romantic date nights. We literally would just rather go out to dinner and just brainstorm our next like business idea. Like that is sincerely so fun. So we are not normal people. Yeah.
I would be hypocritical to judge you on any level because I feel like not 100%, but Andy and I have similar weird, like we love to dream. And we joke all the time, like we have dreamed up so many things. Like we have more dreams than we'll ever actually do. But we just love to sit and be like, just, bouncing ideas off each other. And every once in a while, things happen, like, conferences, things of that. You never know. Exactly. You never know.
You guys know. You make stuff happen.
Podcasts get launched.
Exactly. Amazing.
That's awesome. Well, so my other question for right now is your personal relationship with Jesus in the midst of content creating and all the busy and working with the husband and building a staff. How do you keep that relationship moving forward?
One thing that I've really learned way more about as I've gotten older would be like silence and meditation and just like being okay with being still. And the busier I get, like the more important that is. So that's become like a huge thing for me. And like, honestly, like even just silence has been so huge. Like not even sitting there trying to pray, but just sitting in silence has been so good for me and has just kept me healthy and grounded and just more like aware of myself and what's going on inside of me. So that's been huge and really important for my sanity. And okay, so like also, so a big part of what I do is like editing sermons by all of these people who write all of these messages. And honestly, I'm like, every single time I edit one of these sermons, I'm like, that was great. I feel like I just went to church. Thank you, all of these friends, for writing it. So I feel like double extra blessed because I get this like constant flow of amazing stuff that I get to read. And like, I'm like shaping some of it toward the end, but like really it's just kind of like editing. So I'm getting like youth pastors, like these amazing people preaching to me literally all the time. And I'm just like, thank you for that sermon that was written like just for me. I really appreciate that. I mean, I'm a learner. Like I love listening to things. I'm like a big podcast fan. I listen to audiobooks, like all that stuff. I'm definitely not short on taking in content. I really enjoy that. So, and I also like really love learning from people who I probably disagree with in a lot of ways. That's been huge for me too. Just like being aware of the types of people I'm listening to. As I've gotten older too, I, like looking back on a lot of like the Christian content I have consumed over my life and like the people that I'm like, oh yeah, like they shaped me. Especially recently, I've realized, most of those were white guys, which is an interesting realization because you're like, man, like obviously I like white guys. I married one, but it is interesting to just think about like, hey, if so much of the content that you're consuming is coming from followers of Jesus who are also white males, how is that shaping what you know and have heard and maybe believe about your faith? So right now I'm actually kind of in the season of seeking out like different voices to be aware of and to listen to. And I think being conscious of that has allowed me to really like experience like a fuller picture of who God is instead of just the same Western perspective over and over and over again. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, is like finding new people to listen to. Somebody asked me a couple weeks ago, like, who my top favorite preachers are. And I was like, literally can't answer you right now. Ask me in a couple years. Don't have one. I don't know. Leave me alone.
Don't got it.
I ripped that list up a few years ago and I have not made a new one.
Yes. Oh, well, I told you at the beginning of this interview that once we got towards the end, I wanted to try something new just with you.
Oh my God, I feel so special.
Okay, well, hold those feelings till after.
Okay. Deep breath.
Mainly, I chose you because I felt like you would be a good sport. And
you're not gonna make me sing, are you?
Nope, not gonna. Though I could.
You did have to check something.
I was like,
okay.
No.
It's on my list. Okay, great. Yeah, I try to be a good sport. So
for 2 straight seasons, I have always wrapped up interviews asking the question, "What is the most superficial thing about you?" But here's the thing. I am just not satisfied with knowing asking one random question.
Okay.
So I thought we could introduce in this episode the speed round of random questions.
Do you listen to the Bon Appetit Foodcast at all?
No.
Oh, you should. They do a speed round at the end with all of their guests, and they ask them things like olive oil or butter. And they're like, oh, butter. I don't. And it's like all of these food related questions. It's excellent. So that's what I'm picturing right now.
Okay, so I say speed round. They're not like that short. Some of them are longer questions, but I did try and personalize your speed round for you. We're gonna start really easy, and then we're gonna get to the heavier stuff. Okay.
Oh gosh. Okay.
And
okay.
You can't overthink. It's the first thing. Okay. Are you ready? We're gonna start easy.
Okay.
Elle Campbell.
Okay.
What is your favorite Starbucks drink?
Currently, I mean, it's pumpkin spice season, baby. So pumpkin spice. However, I would do a grande, 3 espresso shots, 1 pump of pumpkin.
Ooh, wonderful. So, Elle Campbell.
That's me.
Have you ever thought about starting a ministry for ministry hoarders, entitling it Stuff You Can't Use?
We have joked about starting a ministry called Stuff You Can't Use, but more as like a trolling website where it would look like regular stuff you can use. But as you start to get into it, you realize that like literally all of the ideas are terrible. And you're like, I don't think I should use any of this. So we have talked about that. But
well, I feel like you should be more considerate of hoarders and maybe angle it towards that. Okay, sorry.
I'll pray about that. Thank you for that idea.
Elle Campbell, name your favorite memory with Chris Pratt.
So, okay. I'm going to have to give some context for this question.
This is speed round. It better be fast context.
Okay. I'll give you the speed answer, and then you can tell me if you want more context. My favorite memory with Chris Pratt was when he asked me for $50, either payable in Bitcoin or iTunes gift cards.
The only context I'm going to give anyone is I'm pointing them to your Instagram page because it's one of the like stories. Check
my highlights. Hashtag Pratt Chats.
Yeah, absolutely. Elle Campbell, I was checking out your curriculum that you guys created, the Grow curriculum, and I just was curious if, since you designed that curriculum, if you've seen a spike in sales in the Colorado region.
Yeah.
No reason why.
That is some data I'm going to need to analyze. So I will get back with you on that. And I appreciate the question.
Oh, good. Just something I was personally curious about. Okay, last and final question. Are you ready?
Ready.
There was rumor that you quit Orange, and I'm wondering, is this like just the ministry orange, or are you just done with the color altogether?
Yeah, I've actually burned every possession. It was like, here's the thing. I just want to stick to primary colors and like monochromatic kind of palettes moving forward. So yeah, that was really the incentive. I'm just like, red, yellow, blue, black and white. That's like really all I need in my life. So I'm gonna stick to that. So thank you for that.
Sorry, Reggie. It's out with you and in with Pratt.
Right. I know. I mean, it's no one's fault. It's just, the color orange is just, I can't do it anymore.
Doesn't look good on very many people. Mm-hmm. Let's be real.
It's true. After Jersey Shore, I was like, too much orange. I can't see anymore.
Elle, you did so good with your random questions.
Thank you.
I'm so proud of you.
Thanks for not making me sing. That was really nice.
Well, I did have one that said, give me your best British accent, but I let you skip it. Unless you have one, then please do.
I don't. I would have to try to think through a good Harry Potter quote, but I'm not fully prepared for that right now. But that is what I would do in the hypothetical situation in which I did give you a British accent. It would be a Harry Potter quote.
Fair enough. So before I wrap up, I do have to tell you one quick thing that I feel like our listeners need to know. You are our first speed round questions. And because my husband and I are also nerds, we were brainstorming, what should we ask Elle in her question time? And so he brainstormed. Yeah, well, he was brainstorming upstairs while I was making dinner downstairs. And all of a sudden, he came running down the stairs. He's like, oh no, guess what I did? He was typing up an email to me to send me his ideas.
Oh no.
And he sent it to you.
Wait. I want to look at it. Can I look at it right now?
Yes, it's definitely in your inbox right now.
Rapid fire. Do you want me to answer his questions too?
Yeah, he did have the Buffalo Bill. That's a football team, right? Do they know that?
That's good. That's a good question. Oh my gosh, Andy. I love you, Andy. Thank you for my email.
I just thought you should know that sometimes even my producer, that's pretty amazing.
Right.
They make mistakes along the way.
Right. So. Sometimes the best of us, the best producers in the world, don't always get it right.
Yeah.
That's a really powerful lesson. Thank you.
Well, Elle, this was fun. I'm so glad that we got to do the interview and laugh together and make jokes that'll probably get edited out together.
It's been a delight. Thank you for having me. You are just a precious angel from heaven, and this is great.
No, stop it. No, really, keep going.
Okay. Yeah. You're everything I've ever wanted in a person. I just love you. That was excellent.
Okay, guys. I don't have a whole lot to add to that interview. I really do hope that you enjoyed every moment, even our absolute ridiculous silliness. But I do want to point out a couple things I do not want you to miss. One of the things I have appreciated about Elle, not just from interviewing her today, but also just kind of watching her from a distance through her social media and her blog, has just been her faithfulness to serve the local church, and not just serve them, but use her gifts, her creativity, all of these things to resource other people. It might be the one thing that really drew me to Elle from the beginning, is you could just see that in everything that her and her husband was doing from the very beginning, that she wasn't someone that was kind of out to make, I got to make a huge paycheck off all these amazing ideas I have. Like, she was just resourcing, and her heart and her number one priority was giving churches things that they needed to be able to do what they were doing even better. And I was just so, blessed by that as a youth leader, because some of her ideas were ones that I was able to take and be able to afford to use in our youth ministry, and they went over amazing. I always appreciated the games, ideas, and things that they put out there, because the reality is there are people who do ministry and all these other things who may not necessarily have every new and creative idea. And so I love when people who are creative, who are thinking up these things, are not just tucking them in drawers and hiding them away, but are putting them out there for other people to be able to use. what do they say? Work smarter, not harder. You don't have to always clear your own trail. Like sometimes you can walk in the footsteps of the people who have gone before you. And Elle Campbell, she is one of those people that she has spent a lot of hours investing in the work that they've done in researching and understanding youth ministry and small group ministry and all of these things. So I just hope if you're listening, you're involved in youth ministry, or maybe you're a parent of a teenager, you just happen to be friends with someone who works in youth ministry, and you're like, okay, if I took nothing else today, I need to connect this person with Elle, with their ministry, everything that they're doing, and provide a really great resource for the work that they're doing with students. The next thing that I have to say is courage. I just appreciate so much Elle's courage and I guess willingness to step into the next thing that God's called her to do. Because especially in their story, and she mentioned it, it wasn't like things got miserable and they went to something else. It was literally twice in a row, God asking them to leave a dream job and trust him as they step into this next opportunity. And I think they say it like, we've officially quit 2 dream jobs. And I love how God has just been faithful in every one of those steps for them, and how he's shown up, and how it's just been this progression and growth from where I first started following her in that church that they were working in to them now having their own company, writing their own curriculum. I just think that whole path, that whole journey that I've been blessed, many other people have been blessed by watching them, has been an inspiration to me and a reminder to me that even the little things that may seem insignificant, that God doesn't waste, that he's using all of these things. And sometimes you may not even realize something that he's working in you right now and how he's going to use that again later down the road and continue to just keep building on it. And I feel like Elle's life and her ministry is such a great picture of that. So this has been another episode, another story. I don't know about you, but I'm loving season 3. Every single person that I've interviewed, and spoiler alert, I've already done 25 out of 30 interviews for this season, and they have all been incredible. So you're in for a treat. This week is no exception. I hope it has been a blessing, an encouragement to you, and wherever God has you, my prayer, our prayer for you is that you will continue to run your race in your place. Talk to you next week.
Elle, you give me sweaty armpits.